This one's just right. And thank you. That was absolutely beautiful. So good morning. I'm Jeff Clark, and I serve as co-president of the Board of Trustees for the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst. I use he, him pronouns. So we welcome you, old friends and new, young and old, in the Zoom, in the sanctuary. You're an essential part of our celebration today. And whether today is your first or your 1000th Sunday in our midst, we are stronger because you are with us. We're one people of many beliefs, many origins, sexualities, and genders. We are all growing, all learning, all loved. Just as you are welcome here. So, as usual, we invite you to participate in the governance of our society. You can come talk to us during the social hour. We're identified by our badges. We open the first 15 minutes of every board meeting for feedback. The next one is this Thursday on the 21st. And it is in person, I believe, as opposed to we've been doing in Zoom for a while. And you can also send us your thoughts at board@UUSocietyofamherst.com. We're grateful to be in community with you.
I am the Reverend Rachel Hayes, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst, and I'm today's worship associate. I use she, her pronouns. Today is a very exciting day for me because it is the first of 5 story sermons. Our story sermon cohort met throughout the winter reflecting on stories as sacred texts and writing sermons based on the questions they heard in the stories. Polly Peterson will lead our service today, and there will be 4 more story sermons in the coming months. While local COVID numbers are lower, masks are optional in the sanctuary. Please reserve the balcony section near the windows for those who choose to wear masks. I call us to worship with a poem by Mary Oliver, The Sun. Have you ever seen anything in your life more wonderful than the way the sun every evening, relaxed and easy, floats toward the horizon and into the clouds or the hills or the rumpled sea and is gone? And how it slides again out of the blackness every morning on the other side of the world, like a red flower, streaming upward on its heavenly oils, say on a morning in early summer, at its perfect imperial distance. And have you ever felt for anything such wild love? Do you think there is anywhere, in any language, a word billowing enough for the pleasure that fills you as the sun reaches out, as it warms you, as you stand there empty-handed? Or have you too turned from this world? Or have you too gone crazy for power, for things?
I'm Polly Peterson, a member of the Unitarian Universalist Society of Amherst. I use she, her pronouns. I invite you to say the chalice lighting words with me. Spark of the Spirit, cupped in earth's embrace, light of love, alive in all creation. As we kindle this flame, we rekindle our connection to the sacred web of life. Please rise in body or in spirit to sing hymn number 16, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple." children to come forward to sit near me as I tell you all a story. Long ago and far away, there was a king called Midas. King Midas had a palace with many rooms and a garden filled with roses. He had a vineyard, too, and an orchard with many fruit trees. And he had a royal treasury filled with his favorite thing of all, gold coins. Every morning, King Midas rose with the sun. He went out to his garden to admire the colorful roses with their delightful fragrance. His little daughter would often join him there. She would search the garden for the loveliest rose with the sweetest smell, and she would pluck it and give it to her father. Then the two of them would sit down and have breakfast together. After breakfast, King Midas headed straight for his counting house to remind himself of his fabulous wealth. He loved his gold coins and always strove to obtain more of them through trade with other kingdoms. He hoped someday that he would be known as the richest king of all. One day, when the king stepped into the garden, he saw a strange creature had fallen asleep there. It had the shape of a person, but it had the ears and tail of a horse. He realized at once it must be Silenus, the favored companion of Dionysus, a god. The king woke Silenus gently and invited him to stay for a few days at the palace. Silenus accepted the invitation, for he had eaten and drunk way too much, and he was not feeling at all well. When Dionysus, who was the god of wine and revelry, traveled once again through Midas's kingdom, he was delighted to be reunited with his favored companion, Silenus. And he thanked King Midas for his kindness. "You've done my dear companion a favor," he said, "and I will grant you a wish." Midas didn't have to think very long to know what he wanted. "I wish that everything I touched would turn to gold," he said. "Are you certain?" asked the god. "Think carefully." "Oh, yes," said King Midas. "Then tomorrow it shall be so." Well, the next morning, King Midas woke up before dawn. You think know what's going to happen? Yeah, I think we know what's going to happen. He touched his lamp, but nothing happened. Disappointed, he went out to the garden, and he picked up a rose and sniffed its delightful fragrance. Just then, the first rays of sunlight lit the garden, and the rose turned to gold. King Midas was very excited. He reached for rose after rose, and each one turned to gold. He sat down at his garden table, and his table and chair turned to gold too. "I soon will be the richest king of all," he thought with glee. There was a bowl of fruit in front of him, and he was hungry. He picked up a bunch of grapes, but as he raised them from the bowl, what do you think happened? You're right. The grapes turned to gold. King Midas felt frightened. How was he to eat if everything he touched turned to gold? Just as he began to realize his terrible fate, his little daughter ran toward him weeping. "Something's happened to the roses," she cried. "They're all dead." She ran to his arms for comfort, and he reached out to hug her. Instantly, she turned from a living child into a statue of gold. Too late, Midas learned that there are many things more precious than gold. The King Midas tale has been told for nearly 3,000 years. The story seems to be a cautionary tale about the danger of being too greedy, a warning that loving money too much can harm you and your loved ones. But I doubt it has served that purpose. When people refer to the Midas touch today, it tends to be a positive thing. Everything he touches turns to gold. It's a metaphor for success. People who pin their hopes on striking it rich in lotteries or cryptocurrency investments or tech startups, like Midas, are undeterred by the possibility that there might be dire consequences if their wishes came true. We tend to have great faith in the American dream. In this election year, there are lots of directions I could go with that thought. But actually, I chose the King Midas story because I see it as a kind of parable of European colonization. From Europeans' earliest encounters with North America, they were awed by the continent's abundance and eager to make their fortunes by taking its codfish, its timber, its beaver pelts, and ultimately the continent itself. That story has been told as the progress of civilization, the birth of a nation, but there are other ways to see it. Last August, my ecologist daughter and I spent a few days at a retreat led by Robin Wall Kimmerer, who is both an academic scientist and an enrolled member of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation. We had read her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, and we were eager to spend a few days immersed in ideas that lie at the intersection of modern science and indigenous wisdom. It was a good way to joggle the mind out of some of the common assumptions, biases, and beliefs that come naturally to us in mainstream America. Kimmerer points out that in North America, Europeans encountered an indigenous culture with values that differed fundamentally from their colonial dreams of striking it rich. From land grabs to literal gold rushes, European settlers have generally focused on taking whatever they believe to be valuable from the environment. Their biblical beliefs taught them that they should have dominion over all of nature. In contrast, indigenous people believed that they themselves were a part of nature and that all living things were their kin. They believed in approaching all of nature with respect and gratitude. To them, the earth itself was sacred, as were all beings. The European view of land as property and the earth's gifts as resources was alien to the people who had been here for thousands of years. Colonizers admired most the men who turned their takings into great personal wealth. But to indigenous people, taking more from the earth than you need was never admirable. Acquiring great personal wealth to keep for yourself was disgraceful. The Potawatomi people have traditions that remind them not to be greedy. One is called the Minidawak, which means give from the heart, or simply the giveaway. Wealth in Potawatomi culture, Kimmerer explains, is measured by the ability to share. The giveaway is a cultural tradition that redistributes material goods so that everyone has enough. It represents a deep truth that all flourishing on earth is mutual. The Potawatomi refer to the land with a word that means that which has been given to us. Their very language fosters gratitude and a trust in the reciprocity of their relationship to the world. The extractive mindset of Western culture is at odds with indigenous ideas of reciprocity, yet the work of Kimmerer and other scientists has shown that the gifts of the natural world actually do multiply by our care for them and dwindle from our neglect. Recent studies have shown that the small percentage of lands managed by indigenous peoples throughout the world accounts for the largest share of the Earth's biodiversity. Reciprocity is not just an ethical issue, it is a matter of sustaining life on Earth. In the folklore of the Potawatomi people, there is a terrible man-eating monster called the Wendigo. The Wendigo is voraciously hungry, but the more it eats, the more ravenous it becomes. Its hunger is never satisfied, no matter how many humans it devours. Kimmerer points out that our own Wendigo nature tricks us into believing that money and belongings can fill our hunger. But of course, we are left hungering for more, just as wealthy King Midas remained dissatisfied. Having great wealth just made him greedy for more. According to Kimmerer, corporations today are a new breed of Wendigo, devouring the earth's resources for greed, not for need. What native peoples once sought to rein in, they unleash. And Kimmerer believes we are all complicit. The consumption-driven mindset masquerades as quality of life, but it eats us from within. We continue to embrace economic systems, she says, that prescribe infinite growth on a finite planet, as if somehow the universe had repealed the laws of thermodynamics in our behalf. We have unleashed a monster. Karen Armstrong, in her book, Sacred Nature, says that while we in the modern West tend to rely more on the left hemisphere of the brain, the home of rational and pragmatic thought, tribal people have a right hemispheric worldview, which identifies connections between things. The right hemisphere is the source of poetry, music, art, and religion. Armstrong illuminates the peculiarity of the Bible's God, who exists elsewhere, in heaven, not here on earth, and points out that this belief has set the stage for nature's exploitation. Of our current climate crisis, she writes, while it is important to cut carbon emissions and heed the warnings of scientists, we need to learn not only how to act differently, but also how to think differently about the natural world. We need to recover the veneration of nature that human beings carefully cultivated for millennia. It is not a question of believing religious doctrines, she says. It is about incorporating into our lives insights and practices that will not only help us to meet today's serious challenges, but change our hearts and minds. The Jewish scholar Ben Zoma asserted 2,000 years ago that real wealth has little to do with material things. The wealthy person, he said, is the person who is happy and grateful for whatever he has, whether it be much or little. The Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh agrees. Many of us think we need more money, more power, or more status before we can be happy. We lose ourselves in buying and consuming things we don't really need, putting a strain on ourselves and on the planet. Like Kimmerer, he believes that science need not be at odds with the spiritual connection to the earth. Every advance of our scientific understanding deepens our admiration and love for this wondrous planet, he said. When we truly see and understand the earth, love is born in our hearts. We feel connected. As UUs, we covenant to affirm and promote respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. But only when we've truly fallen in love with the earth will our actions spring from the insight of our interconnectedness. Loving the earth, decentering ourselves, and listening for what the non-human beings have to teach us may not seem like activism, but without this essential first step, we cannot hope for the change of heart, the altered mindset, the internal values that are essential to this work. In an old nursery rhyme, the king was in his counting house counting out his money. The queen was in the garden eating bread and honey. In America, many of us enjoy material comforts far beyond what even the richest kings and queens could hope for in the past. Our homes are our castles. Our bank accounts and retirement funds are our counting houses. But sometimes our comfortable homes and concerns about money feel like Wendigo thinking. Studies indicate that our way of life has led to an epidemic of loneliness. As Dr. Kimmerer suggests, we think that belongings can satisfy our hunger when it is belonging that we truly crave. The American dream has long been predicated on taking, having, and keeping. But it is becoming clear that this way of life not only harms the planet, but fails to foster a healthy society. The centuries-long success of indigenous lifeways on this continent shows us that seeing life through a different lens is indeed possible. I am joining Karen Armstrong in suggesting that we learn not only how to act differently, but how to think differently about the natural world. I am joining Robin Wall Kimmerer in suggesting that learning from the wisdom of the land and the wisdom of the people who stewarded it for thousands of years gives us new tools to make the world better. I am joining Thich Nhat Hanh in suggesting that the first step in helping our suffering planet is to love it. To heal the world, we'll need science for sure, but even though science fiction may suggest otherwise, there is no planet B. Our beautiful, shared world needs all the loving care we can give it. Our little congregation can't solve everything, but we each can contribute something. Let's engage not just our left brain's power of reason, but also our right brain's sense of wonder and connection. Ritual and song, drama, poetry, art, and dance all play a role in building the spirit of caring, mutuality, and generosity that we will need to solve the Earth's climate crisis. If you believe your wealth lies less in things than in loving relationships, if you care deeply for the Earth, if you agree that Wendigo thinking leads to discontent, then you have probably been rethinking your relationship to consumption. You are probably looking for ways to help the world heal. By good fortune, this is the day when our Green Sanctuary Committee has set up a table that you can visit during coffee hour to learn about some actions you can take right now to live in better harmony with our planet. I'll end with some lines from the poem Beginnings by Denise Levertov. But we have only begun to love the earth. We have only begun to imagine the fullness of life. How could we tire of hope? So much is in bud. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy, only begun to envision how it might be to live as siblings with beast and flower. So much is unfolding. So much is in bud. Please rise in body or spirit to join me in singing hymn number 134, Our World is One World.
Joy Harjo is the first Native American to serve as our National Poet Laureate. She's a member of the Muskogee Nation. Her poem, Eagle Poem, will guide our meditation this morning. To pray, you open your whole self to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know except in moments steadily growing and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty.
about to sing our closing song. You can stay right where you are and be held in the love of the congregation, or you are welcome to form a circle around the outer aisles as we sing. This coming Tuesday is the vernal equinox. The earth is coming alive. So much is unfolding. So much is in bud. Walk in beauty. Go in peace.